Hey everyone. So we got lots of great news and information coming out in regards to the People's Party of Canada, and things are definitely looking up. Liberty is definitely rising in Canada. So you've already probably heard and seen about the fact that, yeah, Maxime had a big meetup out in Saskatchewan. Very popular. The people in that particular province are just openly embracing the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, and the platform. You know, which is all about respect, fairness, personal responsibility, and freedom, which is what I'm all about. So that's why I've chosen. I don't agree with everything within the People's Party of Canada platform. But once again, listen, when you're talking about politics, you shouldn't be looking to force or thrust your ideas on people. What matters most is your ability to put out and present your information that has to do with respecting individual rights and freedom. And the People's Party of Canada is definitely doing that in spades under the leadership of Maxime Bernier. Like I say, the establishment parties, the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDippers, they're just saying, hey, we're going to appeal to a certain demographic and choose you that, hey, if you care about your social freedoms, I guess you got to go to somewhere on the left, you know, the NDippers or the Liberals. And if you care about economic policy, well, the only game in town apparently is the Conservatives. But what people are recognizing today is even all their salesmanship, the tactics they've used where they say you have to pick one of two or one of three of the lesser of evils, what Maxime Bernier and the People Party have said and stepped up the plate and put forth is, no, you don't have to pick. Hey, you want your social freedoms? Yeah, we got them. We respect them, and that's what we're all about. Hey, you like your economic freedoms? Yeah, we got them. We respect them, and that's what we're all about. So, no, you don't have to go to the left or the right. You don't have to pick one side or the other. You can have all your social and economic freedoms under one giant tent, and it's called the People's Party of Canada. And that's why it's called the People's Party of Canada, because it's not about special interest groups. It's about the people. And yeah, some people say, oh, this is communism. No, you're a person, right? Put a couple of you together, and guess what? You're people. Who's talking about communism? We're not talking about the state redistributing wealth, right? And it's not socialism. Once again, we're not talking about the state taking over the means of production or redistributing things in a central planned manner. This is just about respecting each other as individuals and acknowledging that we just have to have some very finite principled rules and how we cohabitate and coexist amongst each other socially and how we deal with each other economically. And that's all. That's all that's needed, folks. You don't need top-down authoritarianism. You just need freedom and liberty. Hey, and personal responsibility and accountability. Combine all those, and yeah, you don't have to worry about if someone disagrees with you, because as long as they don't have the means to impose their mandates or edicts on you, then let them do their thing. That's what libertarians are all about. Anyway, so like I say, in addition to the big success in Saskatchewan, another thing I want to point out is just, what was it, yesterday? No, it was the day before yesterday, actually, now. But yeah, the PPC is now officially registered. So if you want to give donations now and get a tax receipt for it so that big government don't take a portion of that, you can now do that now. So now all of the prerequisite necessities needed to make the People's Party of Canada a reality and a force to be reckoned with in the 2019 elections, yeah, all those parameters have been met. And we're definitely doing well. I mean, just look, I heard this morning already, just in a 24-hour period, I'm seeing they've already raised another, what was it? I think last time I checked, $170,000 in basically a 24-hour time frame, right? From just grassroots people, just donating small portions of their income because they care about the ideas and what the party stands for. Like I said, this gets me excited, folks. I'm very happy to see that finally we have some opportunity in this country to push back against the status quo, against the establishment, the ruling class, those who just want to, like I say, constantly micromanage every aspect of our social and economic lives. Anyways, in addition to that, let's move on. So Bernier obviously was on that East Coast swing. Now, I happen to be currently right now, I'm in Ontario right now. I wish I had been on the East Coast, because especially for that St. John meeting, I would have loved to have been there and meet up with a lot of my NB counterparts. Because yeah, when I am in New Brunswick, and because I have a home in New Brunswick, and I am there from time to time, I'm back and forth. But yeah, not just where I live in the central part, northeast of Fredericton, but yes, as a truck driver, St. John was a place. I worked for Sunbury Transport for about, 5 years of my life. So I know St. John in and out, right? Irving owns As far as industrial and commercial development in that place, Irving has a big footprint in St. John. So I understand that there's definitely some economic development. And I mean, when you talk about pipelines and Energy East and all that, listen, if we can do things right, if we can get rid of these bureaucratic babies or the ones that want to constantly stifle innovation or competition, man, things can really look positive in the future. And like I say, the East Coast, they've been a bunch of have-nots for so long. But if we can allow some economic prosperity and flourishment to happen on that particular side of the country, not only is it going to be beneficial economically, but it'll allow a lot of people to live there and take care. Because right now you got a lot of old people living on the East Coast with nobody around to help take care of them, right? Other than big government. No wonder the East Coast looks to big government take care of them, because they're successive generations. No one can afford to live back there, and there's no jobs back there. So if there's no one else to turn to, where do you think they're going to turn to? The government as a means to an end. But hey, if the Energy East pipeline, if there was some genuine economic activity, or if we had some genuine free trade between the provinces, maybe a lot of us, people like myself, we could afford to live back there, create and generate new businesses and help take care of some of those older demographics that not just need help as far as economics, but help so that they have family members there to take care of them and be there in their latter years or towards the end of their life. Because once again, we always have to think about the human aspect, not just the economic aspects, but the human and social aspects and implication of all these policies, right? So, like I say, in addition to that, and I'll share a link to this. This is an article out of CTV News. Bernier looks to strike some popular chords during first East Coast stops. This is reported by Kevin Bissett from the Canadian Press, January 17th, 2019. St. John NB. Maxime Bernier looked to garner support for his fledgling People's Party of Canada Thursday as he spoke to a small business audience in New Brunswick. His first East Coast foray since starting his new party 4 months ago. He pitched his support for a revived Energy East pipeline, reducing equalization and removing barriers to interprovincial trade. Yeah, that's another thing about the reducing equalization. Because those have-not provinces have been relying on being welfare recipients, right? That redistributive aspect of transfer payments, they've been resting and residing on the fact that, hey, they don't have to put a whole lot of people to work there to generate economic prosperity. They can get those transfers from everyone else that travels to other more prosperous parts of this country or provinces, right? That's a terrible way. That doesn't incentivize anyone to be entrepreneurial or to step up the plate and generate some economic activity in that place. No, like I say, just like a welfare case. If you can give someone, right, if they can accumulate and assume a substantial amount of income that can sustain them without actually having to do anything, of course they're going to do it. A lot of people are always willing to take the easy road, the easy way out. And the onus is on us to hold everyone to account so that they're not resting or residing on the laurels of the productive people or riding their coattails as a means to sustain their own economic viability. Speaking to about 60 members of the St. John Region Chamber of Commerce, Bernier said the federal government needs to use its authority to prevent efforts to block Energy East, which is widely popular in the city. So as you know, as a federal government, hey, you wanted a federalized country, right? You want a federal government. Well, a federal government does have the authority to make it so that you can have, like the Energy East could exist if you had someone like Maxime Bernier in charge at the federal level. No playing politics. You would actually have a real policy that would allow for economic activity that would provide for not just the people that actually are proponents of the Energy East or economic growth, but even those who are advocating or protesting against it. Because those people, those protesters, they rely on that economic activity. They might be able to virtue signal that, oh, they're against oil, but unless they've, like I say, unless they're walking around in moccasins, right? Or riding a horse, and not using any energy-based products, then they're hypocrites. And they should be pointed out and acknowledged as such. Anyways, let's move on. So that's just one aspect. So like I say, Maxime, that's one area as far as when he stepped into the East Coast. And we're talking about St. John, New Brunswick in this one. But even when he was doing and making his rounds over to Nova Scotia, and you're hearing people talking about the fact about with climate change, you know what? Bernier is showing even on that policy, he's remaining principled as well and not falling for the, I have to align with the environmentalists if I want to be economically or politically viable. No, he's showing that he has the moxie and the nerve and the courage to say, no, I'm going to do what's right, even if some people don't necessarily like it. Another headline article out of CTV News as well, Bernier's party would do nothing on climate change, no longer wants trade with China. Maxime, once again, is pushing back and saying, no, we're not going to allow the Chinese government and their corporate arm to create infrastructure in Canada that they can use to spy on us. No, it's bad enough the Five Eyes already do that, right? It's one thing if your neighbor or your uncle's looking over your fence or peering into your backyard. It's quite another thing entirely when you have complete strangers from halfway around the world wishing to do so. This is published Sunday, January 20th, 2019 by Rachel Alliot, Ottawa News Bureau online producer. Ottawa, Maxime Bernier says that if the People's Party was to form government, he would do nothing on climate change because he'd leave it up to each of the provinces and territories to determine their own plan. Right? Allow some competition, right? So one might work, one might not. Hey, that's the best path that actually I could ever think of if you're going to deal with climate changes. Allow a whole lot of different experiments instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. Kudos, Maxime. My party will do nothing on climate change because environment, it's a shared jurisdiction, and provinces, they have programs for that. And so I'll let provinces decide what they're going to do to fight climate change, Bernier said in an interview with Evan Solomon, host of CTV's Question Period. Bernier, who opposed the Paris Accord, the United Nations framework that is aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions, acknowledged that climate change exists. Though at the federal level, he wouldn't implement a carbon tax or any policies aimed at curbing global warming. Instead, he said that if provinces have a plan already in place, he's happy to let them carry on with it. Though if a province doesn't want to take any further steps towards improving its approach to the environment, he's fine with that as well, right? It's called freedom, folks. It's called freedom. It's called competing models. And then that's the only way, can think about it as a science experiment. Let everyone do the experiment, and you'll find out which is most conducive or viable. That's the right approach. And I agree with Maxime wholeheartedly. Anyways, let's move on down a little further in reference to no longer keen on trade with China. Bernier also said that he is no longer keen on the idea of Canada pursuing a free trade deal with China. During the Conservative leadership race, Bernier championed the idea, but following the recent developments, including Canadians being detained in China on exchange of travel warnings and accusations and threats flung at Canada by various Chinese officials, he's changing his mind. I changed my idea on that with everything that is happening recently. I think it is not important to have a free trade agreement with China. It is not a priority, and I'm not for that right now, and I don't see future free trade with China, Bernier said. He also took aim at comments that China's ambassador to Canada, Liu Shan, has made both this week during a rare briefing with reporters and in an op-ed earlier this month, where he alleged that white supremacy is at play in Canada's demand that 2 citizens detained in China be released. It's not true that we are white supremacists in Canada. It's very crazy to say that, Bernier said. So anyways, who cares about the political rhetoric? But yeah, China has shown that they're not willing to play properly in the realm of free market, right? I mean, it's fine to trade with companies or countries that have top-down authoritarianism as long as you set up within the parameters of those agreements that you at least, if you want to deal with me, you can do your own thing in your own country. But when you're dealing with me, no, you have to deal with things in a manner that's befitting of my country. So China, you want to do your top-down authoritarianism, you go ahead and do that. But yeah, you don't get to do that in Canada. And Maxime Bernier, unlike the rest of his counterparts in the established political parties, is saying, no, I'm standing firmly against it. And hey, why wouldn't he? There's lots of people in Canada and the U.S. and lots of Western democracies that can fill this position and take care of this role. We don't have to sell ourselves out to the communist regime of China to advance technology going forward. Matter of fact, the best thing we can do to help our own peeps is to make that a Canadian-based initiative, or a U.S. Canadian or a North American initiative, not having to worry about these regimes from halfway around the world that may very well use that kind of infrastructure for very nefarious purposes. Anyways, as you can see, it's been a great week for the People's Party of Canada. I think things are only going to continue to get better as we go forward. And the more people, that's the thing, share not just my video, share your own messages, share whatever you have out there that gives a positive message in regards to the People's Party of Canada. Or, hey, maybe if it's even people that are negative, at least get people thinking about this stuff so that they're not constantly inundated with the kind of establishment media narrative that says, well, you either got to be conservative, liberal, or NDP. No, there's a new game in town. There's a new choice. You don't have to rely on picking the lessers of evils anymore. You can actually make a principled choice and vote for the PPC under the leadership of Maxime Bernier in October of this year. It's a Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.